God began when I was 5, and my dad died of a heart attack, and we were really close. I loved him, and I felt a lot of love from my dad, and he was fun. He encouraged me. He taught me a lot of great things, and I felt really lost afterwards, after he died. So I started thinking about, well, he died, and my mom says he went to heaven. I want to be where he is, and so how do you get to heaven? And so I just remember having these kind of, it would seem to a lot of people morbid or dark thoughts from a little kid. I was raised in the church, and my mom was really faithful about reading devotions with us. We would talk about God on the way to school, and we would have devotions every day in the morning, and church several times, a week. And I grew up with Christian friends from the church. So that was my environment, was pretty good. But at the same time, I think the way I was responding to the death of my father was, well, and there's other things going on. Not being the brightest kid in the classroom, but loving school, so there's a struggle there. And for whatever reason, I became a bully in school, maybe so that I wasn't smart, so I wasn't on top of the group that way. But maybe I was angry or whatever reason. So I know that as I was thinking, okay, my dad's in heaven. Well, it seems like he's the boss of heaven. And so I have to figure out, how do I get him to let me into heaven so I could be with my dad? And there was this boy that I had a crush on in school. It was probably 5th grade. Well, it was several years, but 5th grade, he invited me to go to his church. And the church I was going to in Ventura was having a church split. And it was breaking my mom's heart. And all the people I had grown up with were there. And so it kind of felt like a breakup of the family, really. This cute boy asked me to go to church with him, and I said, sure, why not? And I think it was over the summer, because I remember Vacation Bible School, and there was a ventriloquist, and that guy just grabbed my attention. But every summer I would ask Jesus into my heart. But there was this one, so then I was getting pretty comfortable here at this church. We made it our church. And I believe it was a revival. One week, me and all our friends were in the back row, and kidding around, passing notes and laughing. But there was definitely there was one night that everything was different. And I just remember it so clearly that God somehow got my attention, and it felt like a tunnel vision, like everything else went really dark. And he said, I want you to listen to what this guy is saying. And I believe it was Pastor Stone. And he was saying, do you want to give your life to Jesus Christ? Do you want to commit your life to Jesus? If you do, stand up out of your seat and walk forward, and I'll pray with you. And of all the times that I prayed that prayer, this was me, God. And when I normally if it was in front of all my friends, unless everybody was going forward, it was a group, kind of deal. But this was just me and God. And I walked forward and knelt at the altar, and I'm sure Pastor Stone was praying with me, but mostly it was a me and God conversation. And I felt like exposed, but all these years, I was walking around feeling really bad about who I was, this mean little kid, telling dirty jokes, and people were not my friends because I was a friend. It's because I was mean, and that was the only kind of respect I was gonna get. And I don't, struggling in school and all these things, and so I thought about death a lot. When you get really, I would get so frustrated because I couldn't produce these grades. Anyways, so it was a life or death kind of thing, and I knew God knew that, and so it was easy for me. I said, God, if you could do anything good with my life, you can have it, because I just didn't see how anything good could come from my life. And I just felt way different after that. I got up and we went upstairs to the alcohol, and I noticed Darren Hauser was there too, but it wasn't about that. So Pastor Stone made sure that we understood what we had just done. I'm sure there was other people there too, but I knew I was changed. Two of the things that God changed about me right away was I was filled with love. I went back to school, my 6th grade, and some of my friends came up to me and they said I was different, and they said, aren't you gonna, be mean to me? And I said, no, I love you. And they said, whatever. And so that was one thing. I really did. I wanted to give them Brush Arbor tapes. I wanted to give them Christian music, a Bible. I was just like over the top. And my mom would say, you gotta, keep it down a little bit because you're gonna scare your friends away. The other thing was that I stopped cussing and telling dirty jokes. So I know God changed me, but there was going to be a long process, also a continuous change. And so, also while I was growing up, Mom always said, you don't have your father, but God wants to be your father. And so I think the transition for me was super easy. I thought about that constantly. But then when I accepted Jesus into my heart and I gave my life to God to do something with it, and He was changing me. And He put me through trials with my friends. They didn't trust this new thing, but it was real, and they saw it over time. But it's been really easy for me to see God as my Father, and He's been faithful. And so many people have left me in my life, friends and family, and not for bad reasons, but just life, God's never left me, and He's been a good Father. And I love to tell that story. And I was recently reading John, and it talks about Jesus is talking to His disciples before He went to the cross, and he was telling them about where He was going, and they said, we don't know where you're going, and we don't know how to get there. And that's when he said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. And that's what I found to be true. To get to my dad, I finally found the way, and it was through Jesus. But then it wasn't about getting to be with my dad. I fell in love with God. And now I really look forward to being with the Father. And I found that way through Jesus. And recently, my mom went to heaven in January. And I was looking back, the last few months I've been trying to keep the house clean and eating really well and keeping her finances organized. And every time I look at her picture, I think, oh, you're going to be so proud of me. But then I say, but you're not coming back. And I get a little sad. And it was last week, God said, your mom's not coming back, but I'm coming back. He says, I wish you did those things for me. And the study that I've been doing he was telling his disciples those parables about the master leaving the servants with the vineyard, or the master giving the talents. And those parables about him leaving them in charge of his stuff, but then returning, and how would he find his servants? And he challenged me, the way I was living for my mom, to transfer that. Because when I was little, we heard a lot about him coming back soon, but now I know it's even sooner now. And I would challenge people to consider that. We know the times, we know the signs, and we don't know how short, but we need to live faithful to God. Things that would really matter for when he returns, for him to say, hey, well done, good and faithful servant. I left you with these things, and they've been multiplied. And it's easy to get caught up in making our lives comfortable, but it's not going to matter when he comes back. So that's my admonition and my testimony.